On today's Locked On Texans podcast, we dive into the YouTube comments. What have y'all been thinking? And Big Sarge of Big Sarge Media joins the show.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Woo! It's Friday, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Friday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And please say it with me.
Your team every day.
Welcome
every
to this Friday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. To all of our first-time listeners and viewers, thank you for stopping by. Come on, sit down, come in the house, come on in the room. Please subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Thank you to all of our returning listeners and viewers coming back as Cody and I continue to talk Texans. I'm your Texans football analyst, John, some sports guy Hickman. On the other side of the screen, Texans credential media member, Sports Illustrated's own, also as heard on Killer Bees 97.5. Cody Davis, and today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side. It is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. Join your friends and download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play.
And on this Friday installment of Locked On Texans, we will be joined by Big Sarge of Big Sarge Media, LLC. Can't wait for him to tell you guys what that's all about. But along with Big Sarge, we will be discussing what was the Houston Texans' biggest mistake during the 2024 NFL Draft. And when you take a look at Kamari Lassiter, what is his ceiling? I would love to ask Big Sarge that question because he is the Houston Texans' top overall selection of the 2024 draft. And John, I think his ceiling is high, but it might take a while before we see him reach his full potential here.
Could be. I think that's a very man. So I think the best part about Lassiter coming to Houston, like when Stingley came to Houston, we knew he was going to be the starting cornerback. Lassiter, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that, hey, he's a day one starter. But one thing that you've been highlighting all week, and I think, guys, if you didn't hear it today, you can go throughout each show this week and hear it, and you will hear Cody say this, Houston brought in guys that will help continue the foundation. In so many words, right? I mean, Houston had a boring draft, and that's a good thing for Houston. But for Lassiter and his ceiling, it's hard to determine, right? We see a lot of guys go first round, top 5 corners in the college football draft, in the NFL draft, and once they get into the NFL, they don't pan out. It's hard to say. I think that's a conversation we can probably circle back to once training camp gets around, and he's going up against Nico, Tank, Stephon, Mechie, Hutchinson. We're seeing him have those competitive 1v1s. But what I like about Kamari Lassiter and the question of his ceiling, I like that he'll get there when it's time. And him reaching his peak won't be the end-all, be-all for Houston. Like, it's not a make or break that if he doesn't have a good season, you're looking at a secondary that's at the bottom half of the league, right? And I think with that, hear me out, I think with that thought, it allows Houston to really just deep dive into developing that player and giving him the time to get accustomed, because they got a all-pro waiting to happen in Derek Stingley. You got a Jeff Okudah, regardless how a lot of people may feel. I like Okudah, and I think he did a very good job of rebounding his career last year. And Lassiter also may get an opportunity to compete for that nickel. I think he should be able to compete for outside corner. But either way, we know that he'll see the field this year. But this isn't like a Kevin Johnson situation about a decade ago where you're looking at Houston, they needed a cornerback, and they drafted Johnson, and that never panned out, and that blew up in their face, right? Because at that time, Houston needed a contingency plan for Jonathan Joseph. That was supposed to be him. It didn't work out. No, that's not the situation for Houston or Lassiter. They got guys right now that are ballers, that are some good football players, and that allows them to kind of say, we can take our time with this young man because the guys in front of him we trust a lot. Let's dive into the YouTube comments. This is from the Could Caleb Bullock become Houston's most impactful rookie in 2023? I saw this comment that I really wanted to get to because it's a huge what if. Cody, the number 59 overall pick was who for Houston?
Blake Fisher, the hottest name on the market right now.
It's hot. Jarrell Scott 5203, who does a very good job of communicating and he does a good job of just communicating and having good discussions on the Twitter page. I'm sorry, on the YouTube page. But he said, what if Blake Fisher beats out Titus during training camp and Titus moves to guard again?
It's not happening, man. That's not happening, man. Put it like this.
What's not happening? Beating out Titus or Titus moving back to left guard?
Titus moving back to left guard. It's not happening. You got too many options, man. I mean, the number one option, best case scenario, Kenyon Green. After Kenyon Green, you got Jared Patterson, you got Juice Scruggs, you got Kendrick Green. Like, there's just too many options for him to go back to left guard. As for Blake Fisher beating him out, I don't see it because even though Blake Fisher has some potential, I don't see him beating out a veteran like Titus Howard because, look, I understand last year was a very disappointing year, although it was due to injuries. You still got to keep in mind that Titus Howard is one of the best players at his position in the league. And with that being said, I don't see a situation where he's going to lose his spot. If he does end up losing his starting spot, that means that Titus Howard has performed so bad throughout training camp to the point they do not even want to put him within that starting five. Because remember, this is the first time since 2018, 2019 that we're looking at the Houston Texans and expecting them to not only make the playoffs, but make a deep run. How does that deep run look? It better be at least to the AFC Championship game, which means that Nick Caserio, D'Amico Ryans, Bobby Sloyd, hell, I even put Matt Burke in this. Their patience is going to be very thin for a lot of these players if they start messing up throughout training camp in the first half of the season. So there's no way. I do not see a situation where Titus Howard is back at guard.
Henry T is not a guy y'all should be questioning or overlooking. I don't think we're overlooking HT. I think, honestly, and I think we Cody and I should do a better job of maybe bringing on more of our maybe in-text or on phone call conversations to you guys. But I don't think we're overlooking them. I know in the past we both talked about just the development we saw from Christian Harris in year 1 to year 2. Granted, we believe that Christian Harris is coming out of college, a much better linebacker. And then he had an opportunity to go through his ups and downs during his rookie year, get D'Amico Ryans, and in the second half of last year, really take off. And I think that for Henry T, what he's going through that's a little bit better in terms of curve-wise, he had a full year under D'Amico Ryans in his rookie year. So you're looking at maybe the possibility of eliminating some of the bad habits or just eliminating some of the tendencies from a defense that wasn't successful, like Christian Harris had to go through, right? Well, I mean, we saw him in that defense with Lovey 2 and how bad those moments were for him. So he had to work through some of those bad tendencies as to where Henry T is coming in a situation in his sophomore year. He's already had a year being in this foundation. So I don't think we're overlooking him. I think that the reason, stop me if I'm wrong, we may not have been highlighting him as much is because the linebacker group is so thin. We believe that he is a shoe-in to make this roster, but they have issues beyond that because of how thin it is. But I do see Henry T being a valuable piece of this team, and I believe he'll be special on special teams, honestly.
Well,
so
it's
not overlooking him at all.
To me, it's not really overlooking him. It's just basing off of what he did last year. Remember, John, at the start of the 2023 season, Henry T was playing some pretty valuable snaps for this organization. unfortunately, he wasn't getting the job done. And halfway through the season, we saw those snaps get lower and lower and lower. And then by the end of the 2023 season, majority, if not all of his snaps came on special teams. So It's not the fact that we're overlooking him. That's why every time we talk about the linebacker room, we always preface our statements by saying if he could take that leap in year 2. When we mean by leap, we're not saying him becoming an all pro or Pro Bowl caliber linebacker, but just him being a valuable piece that D'Amico Ryans and Matt Burt can actually utilize on the defensive side of the ball. Because once again, if this team is going to compete for a championship and get into the playoffs and reach the AFC championship game and hopefully get to New Orleans by early February, they're going to have to make sure that they are good on all 3 levels, especially going up against some of the best quarterbacks in this league.
It's winner take all in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Friday installment of Locked On Texans. You guys see the big smile over there. Mr. Big Sarge from Big Sarge Media, LLC. Hey. Texans beat reporter. What's going on, man?
Hey, man, listen, that Big Sarge Media, LLC sounds great, man. I think I said it for the first time the other day when I said credential media member for Big Sarge Media, LLC, man.
Really quick. Really quick, man, because, me and John talked about it a couple of days ago. Of course, we had to mention it again here today. Can you just give the listeners and viewers what is Big Sarge Media LLC? Just really quick.
Man, it's my own media company that I started. I want to say, I started it maybe like 4 years ago. I started 4 years ago, and I became an LLC on my birthday. My wife got it for me as a birthday present. I want to say 2 years ago. And so it's just something that I've been building, man. I've always wanted my own media company. And, a lot of people think that Big Sarge Media is just an extension of Big Sarge Sports, when in all actuality, Big Sarge Media houses so many of my other ventures, like Screaming on the Inside for men's mental health. One of the crowd, look, one of the fan favorites. I just got asked about this yesterday and saying, "Hey, man, when you gonna bring back the Buzzed and Petty podcast?" It also houses my attention to orders. And so there's a lot of other things. It has my what else falls under that umbrella, excuse me, is I'm going to do some public speaking here pretty soon and some conferences. And so yes, Big Sarge Sports falls under Big Sarge Media, but it's so much bigger. I put it like this: Big Sarge Sports is a selfie of Big Sarge Media, which is the panoramic view.
Well, my brother, congratulations, man. I'm rooting for you, man.
Thank you, brother.
The very first player they had an opportunity to hear Brian Bedfield, Big Sarge of Big Sarge Media LLC, was Kamari Lassiter, who was the first pick of the Houston Texans of the 2024 draft. So, Sarge, let's jump right into it, man. What are your thoughts about Kamari, and what do you think Kamari's ceiling can actually be? Because me and John really had a very interesting conversation about that in the first segment.
So if I could channel my Houston Texans offensive lineman Larry Tunsil here and get into that mode and just say, dog. Kamari Lassiter is a dog. 2-time national champion, man, and the way that he plays the game, I love it. I love it. I love it. A lot of people were talking about, his 40 time and how they don't think that he was fast enough. And I've seen so many players in the past come in with whose 40 time wasn't blazing, but has had really, really, really good careers, especially on the defensive side of the ball as well, playing the cornerback or safety position. So I don't look at him as a slow cornerback. I look at him as a physical cornerback. I look at him as someone who can also play the nickel, because the only knock on him when it comes to his speed is if the receiver gets around him, he has a hard time catching up because he doesn't have that blazing speed. I mean, when you look at a defensive back like Derek Stingley Jr., he may get beat off the line. You may beat him with the move, but his recovery speed is so good that he's never really out of a play. I don't think that Lassiter has that type of speed just yet, but his physicality to be able to jam a wide receiver at the line, or even you can bring him up and jam a tight end if you need him to be, because he doesn't look that strong, but he's a very strong player. After watching some of his highlights, man, if he gets his hands on you, he's going to be able to hold you for a minute. And so with him, I like the fact that the Houston Texans drafted him, and I know that they have Jeff Okudah, and I know that they have C.J. Henderson.
Just stick to Jeff Okudah. Let's just stick to that.
And I know they have Jeff Okudah, and I don't know. I mean, this may be the place where it finally clicks for Jeff Okudah, because if you're the number 3 pick in the 2020 NFL draft and you played, this is your third team since you've been drafted. It's got to be something that's not connected, and maybe that's something that DeMeco Ryans can do. Maybe DeMeco Ryans can help him get on the track that he needs to be. But if not, so it's a funny thing, because when I was doing research for this topic, I started to think about something. If you put Lassiter at the number 2 spot, right? If you put Lassiter at number 2 opposite of Derek Stingley Jr., what you're getting is a cornerback who, like I said, who can play, who's good in pass coverage, who is physical even at the point of attack of the run. He may not be the fastest, like I said, but here's the thing. What did we see last year, Cody, in the AFC wild card game when the Houston Texans took on the Cleveland Browns on the defense side of the ball? We've seen something that we really hadn't seen in a very long time, and that was Derek Stingley Jr. traveling.
Yeah, I remember that.
He didn't travel a lot, but against the Browns, he was matched up against Amari Cooper, 35 out of 42 routes in that wild card game, 1 reception, -6 yards, and that's compared to the Cooper getting 265 and 2 touchdowns in week 16. And so I say that to say this, is that if you have Lassiter and Stingley on the field at the same time, you can, now that we know, we should have known with Lovie Smith, but that's another story for another time. Now that we know that Derek Stingley Jr. can travel, as long as you got him on the best wide receiver and got Lassiter on the second wide receiver, I think that you'll be good. And like I said, I really like him, and I like his attitude. He has that I'm not going to be defeated attitude. You're not going to beat me. And Cody, if you can get 2 cornerbacks on the field, 2 defensive backs on the field who has 3 national championships, 3 college national championships amongst the both of them, that means that they know a little bit of something about holding some of the best wide receivers. So I really like Lassiter.
Lassiter was the first pick that the Houston Texans had. Day 3, they end up getting a guy that myself and John, we've been seeing a lot of his name in the comment section, and you had an opportunity to do a really good story on him on your Stub Sack. And that's linebacker Jamal Hill out of Oregon. What are your thoughts about him? And when you take a look at this linebacking core, you already know who your top 2 dogs are. But outside of them, we know there's Henry T, but it's like, can Henry T fix the intangibles that held him back as a rookie? And do we have enough faith in him to take that next step? But where do you see Jamal Hill playing a role in this linebacking core as of right now?
So I had an opportunity to speak with someone who plays for the University of Oregon. Shout out to defensive end, edge rusher, defensive tackle sometime too, but definitely plays defensive end, Ashton Porter, who was a teammate of Jamal Hill. He said he's one of those guys who he doesn't want to lose. So he'll do whatever it takes for the team to win. And that's from Whatever needs to be done on the field, whatever needs to be done off the field, he is just a winner, and he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to lose, and I think that has something to do with his father, who passed away when he was 5 years old, was an Army drill sergeant, and so it takes a special person to be a drill sergeant. Let me tell you that. And so I feel like he has that in him, but Cody, because you know how I feel about Henry To'oTo'o.
Yeah.
I really like Henry To'oTo'o, and I really like Henry To'oTo'o in run defense.
Mm-hmm.
It's his pass coverage that tends to keep him off the field on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to get lost when it's time to cover, to go in coverage, excuse me. Just like Denzel Perryman when he was with the Texans. I was just like, these guys will definitely get to the point of attack and stop a running back. But once they go into pass coverage, it seems to get lost. They seem to get lost. And so hopefully that Henry To'oTo'o can work on that this year. I say that to say this. I sound like Cody Davis. I say that to say this. The advantage that Jamal Hill has is he plays safety for 4 years. And by playing that safety position for 4 years, he knows how to cover a wide receiver. He knows how to cover, a running back out of the backfield. He knows how to cover a tight end. He plays well in coverage. Now, he may not be as strong in the run game as Henry To'oTo'o, but that's something that I feel like that he can work towards. And if he has to come from the safety position all the way, if he has to if he's consistently making tackles, then that means that something ain't going right with that front four.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could see him getting playing time, and I'm hoping that Henry has worked on his pass coverage. But if not, Jamal Hill is going to definitely take that spot. I'm in my notes, I put he's very quick, and he reminds me of someone else that plays for the Houston Texans already. And I don't know if your fans, viewers, and listeners, did I get that right?
Yeah.
If the fans, viewers, and listeners, yeah, I don't know if they're aware that Christian Harris played defensive back as well.
Mm-hmm.
Christian Harris played defensive back and converted to linebacker. So now you have. That's why I don't know if people notice that when he finally got a coach that could coach him at that position in D'Amico Ryans, you could see the change. He had the speed. He had the ball skills. He had everything that he needed except playing in that position. And so I think that with Jamal Hill, it's going to be the exact same thing because he only played that position 1 year. D'Amico's going to teach him, all the while teaching Christian Harris at the same time. And man, if you got them two speedsters, like having those two guys on the field at the same time, because I think if I'm not mistaken, Hill ran a 4.41 40, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember.
But if you got him and you got Christian Harris on the field at the same time, man, that's almost like having two extra defensive backs.
All right, guys, game off. We got to pause here to talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying to yourself and thinking, flag on the play. You've already talked about that. There's so much more good stuff in this game to talk about. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting. Every day they have constant changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mega mini games like digging for treasures or a new robot machine. There's always something new, including timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. Get off the bench and download the game free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Friday installment of Locked On Texans. Sarge, I do want to ask you this. A week before the draft, you were sitting in the press conference with me. We was talking to General Manager Nick Caserio, and he said there was 3 attributes that he's using to go into this draft: flexibility, availability, and adaptability. And when I heard those 3 things, I started thinking, where would that rank in terms of the Texans drafting, let's say, an offensive lineman, which at the time I thought was, far from the truth, along with the offensive backfield when you take a look at the running back position. And now here we are, almost a week away from the 2024 draft. And not only did Nick Caserio add to the offensive backfield, but he picked up not 1, but 2 offensive linemen.
Hey, look, I got a question, Cody. Like, I understand that he is the general manager, but they added executive vice president to his title as well. We're supposed to say general manager and executive vice president, or executive vice president and general manager. I just say general manager. I don't know what else to call him.
Well, let's just ask him next time. But we should be speaking to him soon.
For sure. But Cody, I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised that the Houston Texans took an offensive lineman at first. When they took Blake Fisher, I said, okay, I can see it. And then to end the draft, they took Ladarius Henderson. I said, okay, I can see it. Because, just like what you've said in the past, Laramie Tunsil, we don't know how healthy he's going to be. When he's healthy, we know he is the best, but he's dealt with some health issues. Titus Howard has dealt with some health issues. We still have yet to see the potential of Kenyon Green. Patterson started out the season on injury reserve. And so there's going to be some time. They lost, I'm sorry, and they lost Kedrick Green to injury, and then you look on the other side, they lost George Fant to free agency. They lost Josh Jones. It was one more person that I'm thinking about that they lost. But they lost another
Quisenberry, if you count him.
And so just like we talked about with them being able to fill some of those holes and needing depth needing depth on the team, adding Blake Fisher and Ladarius Henderson. I like the Ladarius Henderson pickup. And let me tell you why I like Ladarius Henderson. Here's a young man that didn't start playing football until the 11th grade. Like, he had no intentions, through the middle part of his sophomore year, even at his height and his weight, he had no intentions on playing football at all until he got talked into it in high school by the offensive line coach. And he went in that next year, his junior year, he played. And then next thing you know, he's a late bloomer. He was, if I'm not mistaken, he was all Big Ten last season for Michigan.
Yeah, he was. Won
the national championship. And I put this in my article. When he first started out at Arizona State, he was blocking for 2023 Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels, who was at Arizona State, transferred to LSU. He transferred to Michigan. Now, here's the funny part about it. Here's the story that some of the people may not know. When he put in his name to transfer, put his name in the transfer portal, to go from Arizona State, he had a plethora of colleges wanting him. And he wanting him and told him, you're going to start day one once you get here. He decided to go to Michigan because of their offensive line coach, and they told him, we got a pretty good group here. If you come here, there's no, we don't really have a starting position for you. And then some things happened, and the position opened up where he was able to get some playing time. And next thing you know, bam, here he is. So, and blocked for JJ McCarthy, who went top 10. So he blocked for Jaden Daniels, who went top 10. He blocked for JJ McCarthy, who went top 10. And I'm talking about in the 2024 NFL draft. So now you have a guy who knows the importance of protecting a franchise quarterback. Not only that, I know Nick said, when he talked about Fisher, when he talked about Henderson, well, you can never have too many tackles. but Henderson can also play guard. I think in 33 games, he started 29 out of the 33 games he played in. 19 of those starts was at guard. So here's a guy that you can move, up and down the line as well, almost like a Titus Howard type, offensive lineman. And I think that because he started playing football so late, the Texans being able to draft him and get him now and bring him in, he still hasn't, even though he made all Big Ten last year, he still hasn't reached his full potential yet. And Blake Fisher, I mean, we already seen what he can do. So I like the fact that they were able to get those two offensive linemen, fill those holes. The steal for me, I will say this. I know you didn't ask me, but I'm going to tell you anyway. One of the steals is, of course, Cade Stover, who I like, by the way. And I know that you and John have already talked about him because he's your guy. I know that. So I'm about to talk real quickly about two of the guys that one is your guy and one is John's guy. Stover, that's your guy. What I like about Stover is that he's so versatile. You can almost put him anywhere. I think after the draft, when we were talking to him, I got a chance to ask him, because think about the wide receivers he played with. And you can flex him out to the wide receivers. Like, okay, I'm not just saying this because of his ethnicity. I'm not just saying this because of his haircuts, okay? I'm not saying this because of those things, but Texas may have picked up on a Travis Kelce light, man.
Oh! What? I didn't go that far. I said at best I could see him being Owen Daniels, who is by far the best tight end that this franchise has ever had.
Gonna blow Owen Daniels out the water.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, one, I think he will be the best tight end that the Houston Texans have ever had since Owen Daniels. Because if you think about it, ever since Owen Daniels left, that tight end core has been like just all over the place. So, but Travis Kelce, I mean, he is playing with a demigod. So, I mean,
hey, look,
we don't know.
Okay, so look, because you don't want to say it, I'll say it. Because I know that you've done your research. I know that you've watched his highlights with CJ.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've seen him. There was one play, I can't remember the team that they were playing. CJ was scrambling, and he threw the ball back across his body, which is really
I know. I know what play you're talking about.
And what did Stover do? Snatch that joker right up out there. Who does that? Hey, I'm going to say this on Taylor Swift's internet.
Oh, my goodness.
Cade Stover, bro, could be it. Hey, listen. They have the right people around him to do that. Think about when next year when the Texans go double tights, right? He's in the game, right? If they go double tights, and then they have him, they put him in motion, right? And have him and Dalton Schultz on the same side. Come on, Cody. Are you not seeing this?
Not Travis Kelce, man. I mean,
listen.
I've seen Texas fans say we got our version of Patrick and Kelce, but
I haven't seen none of them say that. But Cody, all I'm saying is this. Think about it, Cody. Hold on. Just think about it. Here's a look. Not only is he an athlete, how many positions has he played in football? And he's learned from some of the best. Listen, he was there when Olave was there.
You're right.
He was there with Marvin Harrison Jr.
You're right.
He was there with what's the guy's name out of New York?
Oh, you're talking about
the offensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, I can see him right now. Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson. He was there with what's his name out of
Jackson
Seattle.
Smith, Jibba.
And what did he say? I learned from all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to run routes. I learned how to do things. He not super slow. I mean, you look at Travis Kelce, he ain't fast. I mean, let's just say this then. Let's just call him Gronksy, a mixture of Gronk and Travis Kelce. Gronksy. Can we call him that?
Sure.
And hold on, real quickly, John's guy, I like Jawar Jordan, running back out of Louisville. Listen, I know I told you this before, and this is going to be corny as hell, but I want to say it anyway. JJ is what? A dynamite!
Oh my goodness. Sarge, really quick. Last question before I get it out of here, man. I think we can all agree, depending on how you feel about the Houston Texans draft, I think they came away, everybody can agree that they came away with a pretty good draft class that within the next year or two, depending on how far this team can go, all of these guys could potentially play a vital role in the Texans' success, starting as early as this year. However, when you look back at this draft, is there at least one mistake that you can point to that you can say, I wish they would have done X, Y, or Z? I know.
If Nick would have just
one spot
and got Kool-Aid McKinstry, you knew where I was going, didn't you, Cody?
Of
You
course.
knew exactly where I was going. Like, don't get me wrong. But if you would have been able to put Kool-Aid, look, there wouldn't have been no reason to talk about anything. I know they say, well, Kool-Aid was a little inconsistent. Yeah, whatever the case may be. If I got Derek Stingley on one side and I got Kool-Aid McKinstry on the other side, I'm saying to myself, yeah, go ahead, throw it. Go ahead, Cody. If I had both of them on the field at the same time, I would blitz like I was. If I was D'Amico, I'd blitz like I was playing Madden. You'd be like, "Hey, bro, do they blitz every down here? Yeah, you can't throw to nobody. What you gonna do? You better throw in the flats. And then you throw in the flats. I still got speedsters in Harris and Hill that's gonna get there, and that's a short enough distance for even Henry Toa to get over there and do some damage. But I just wish that they would have went up
one spot before, man.
Listen, I would have jumped up 2 spots in order to secure him.
Mm-hmm.
To secure him, I'd have been like, yeah, I mean, what y'all want? Like, because at this point, think about it, Cody. At this point, like we said, they're not drafting for need. D'Amico should have been in the back room as soon as the draft started, as soon as the second round of the draft started, as soon as they walked in, as soon as they seen each other, he should have been like, hey, Kool-Aid, to give him some type of clue of who he wanted. Hey, bro, I like what kind of Kool-Aid you like, red or purple?
Yeah, we'll never call him out of flavor.
Right.
It's red, purple,
orange.
Oh man. Texans beat reporter for Big Sarge LLC. Big Sarge Media. Big Sarge Media LLC. Big Sarge, really quick, please tell our listeners where they can follow you at on all your social media platforms, and be sure to tell them about the website that you got coming.
So you can follow me at Big Sarge Sports with the Z at the end at the app formerly known as Twitter. You can subscribe to my podcast, Sports Talk with Big Sarge, available wherever you get your podcast from. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Big Sarge Media, and subscribe to my Substack, which is Big Sarge Media. I have put out a couple of articles on there that I think Texans fans will like. I have one on Ladarius Henderson and his journey to the NFL, about his faith in his family. I have one about Jamal Hill and how his mom during Pee Wee football used to run down the sidelines when he was playing running back, run down the side. So his journey. And I just put out an exclusive with Khalil Davis today.
Yes, sir. And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24. And please be sure to follow my co-host, John Hickman, at John_Hickman12. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.